All right, Bellingham. We are here with People First, and we're going to just do a live debrief of yesterday's forum. We just want to let everyone know that we are all vaccinated. We are outside. There's a lot of breeze happening, so just we feel safe and want you to know that as well. And we're just going to start asking questions. It is a little loud and rainy, so let us know if you need us to speak up. And please feel free to type your questions into the chat. We'd love to talk with you today. And I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves, and we'll get started from there. Thanks.
Hi. I'm Maya Morales with People First Bellingham, and was participating in the League of Women Voters Forum for number 2.
Hi, I'm Sage Jones, she, her pronouns. I'm both with People First Bellingham and Whatcom BSA.
Good morning, everybody. Seth, he, him pronouns. Also with People First Bellingham, Whatcom BSA, and I spoke yesterday on Initiative 4.
Awesome. So I guess starting things off, we're just going to go through and talk about how we felt about each forum. Sage, you were the support for Initiative 1. How'd you feel it went?
I felt good. I honestly wish that I had somebody to speak against to really frame the conversation between renters and the landlord interests in town. But other than that, I think it went well. Of course, it's really nerve-wracking speaking on a forum that a lot of people use as a resource to vote. So I think all of our volunteers were a little bit nervous yesterday. And something I just want to reiterate, because I think that the explanatory statement that the city put out in the voter pamphlet is really biased and frames it in an unfair way. Is that the renter relocation at the level that we're doing is legal in Washington State. This was based off of legislation from Portland, Oregon, when they had a very similarly written anti-rent control piece of legislation on the state level, as we do in Washington State. And it's held up in court multiple times that renter relocation assistance is not rent control. And Seattle City Council just passed a renter relocation assistance last week. At least their city council voted in favor of it, and now the mayor has to, approve it. But it's in some ways a lot stronger than our renter relocation assistance. It's still 3 months rent as the relocation assistance, but it's 6 months notice instead of 3 months notice, which for any of us who have looked for housing in the last year, we know it's hard to find housing when you are displaced.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can all relate to that. Maya, how did you feel about Initiative 2?
Hey, yeah, so it was great to have folks join in for Initiative 2. We did have 2 opposing arguments for that. We also had, we're so grateful to have had Jen Lee from ACLU Washington sit in with us on that. Thank you so much. Really bringing the facts. There definitely were a couple of points there that I want to reiterate and then also debunk. So key points here are that both facial recognition and predictive policing technologies have really created an uproar in the rights community and advocacy communities, and have been facing tons of lawsuits all over the place. So they've already been banned in 22 cities. We are not alone in this at all. So voters should definitely understand that this is really placing us into a whole movement of people who are really mobilizing on behalf of our rights to privacy, our rights to freedom of expression, to not be surveilled everywhere we go and for everything we say and do. So there's that. The other thing that was mentioned in the forum yesterday was that this is just really about catching criminals. And I want to really clarify and debunk that. We have a lot of time-tested ways that our law enforcement targets crime. What we don't need to do is build tech algorithms that take all of the past crime data and plug them in to algorithms that are not transparent, that we don't have sort of full say in as the public, that basically spit out the same thing that is put in terms of where crime will take place. So predictive policing technologies essentially they scrape information from all over the place. There isn't a lot of regulation about how they're used. Even if that is regulated, what we know is that they're sourcing from data that is already flawed. Why is that data flawed? Because we know that there is a huge amount of systemic racism and bias against targeted communities of all kinds. Queer folks, LGBT, immigrant communities, targeted others for political dissent reasons. There's a lot of issues with policing data. And we know that when that is put into an algorithm to predict who will commit crimes, that we are essentially just creating a self-replicating cycle, okay, of really systemically terrible crime prediction that essentially helps police and law enforcement agencies to retarget over-targeted communities. So this is really creating the situation where policing can be tech-washed, meaning that law enforcement can say, well, we're not being biased. This is what our amazing software has predicted. We're stopping you because, we have all of these various pieces of data that have connected you to a possible crime. So that is something I really wanted to debunk. I didn't get to explain that super thoroughly and clearly in yesterday's forum, and I think it's really important for voters to understand. We can come back to this. Let's move on to another issue. But if you have more questions, feel free to bring them up.
Thanks, Maya. And then we don't have Betsy Pernato here today with us, but Seth, Maya, do y'all want to speak to, Seth and Sage, do y'all want to speak to number 3?
Yeah, I actually want to pull up the definition that the opposition kept citing yesterday, and say that they were paraphrasing the definition and saying it as if that was the language, which I felt was really disingenuous. So the whole definition for receive city funds means to receive city funds in any form, including a grant, payment, under contract, reimbursement, or other direct payment, and also includes receipt by subcontractor for payment for performance of any portion of a contract funded with the city funds. And the definition for city funds means any money drawn from the city general fund or any special or trust fund of the city, and any city resources in the form of goods and services that are provided to any person. City funds also means the value of those goods and services. So between these two definitions, it's very clear that it's not anybody who gets a water bill from the city of Bellingham. That's not a way in which we receive funds as a payment for something that we've done for the city. That's a totally just disingenuous framing, and it takes the narrative away from this being a way to help workers who are trying to unionize their workplaces, and makes it sound like some scary thing that will silence anyone who has anti-union talking points. It just means that anyone who contracts with the city, who has employers, either needs to make the decision not to union bust, or they need to segregate funds. That's what this initiative does. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Awesome, thank you. And then I think we'll stick with both of you because you were defending Initiative 4 yesterday. How did you feel it went?
Well, like Sage mentioned earlier, it was a nerve-wracking experience for sure, but I overall feel pretty good about it, and felt like I had some good talking points that really were hopefully persuasive. But I definitely want to correct the record a little bit. I did say that salaried workers would never be paid hazard pay, and it is written into Section 10 of Initiative 4 that he could theoretically be entitled to. We just generally feel that in most cases, unless they are absolutely frontline workers, say nurses, would not ever be entitled to hazard pay, since so much white collar administrative back end work can be done remotely and has been throughout this pandemic.
Well, because it specifically says it's for on-site employees,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
And then, like, it's so funny because I kind of wish that I had taken that question, because that question was one where they asked, well, what about the teachers? And I just want to, like, really question the narrative on the opposition side to always point out female-dominated industries that are, like, heavily reproductive labor and be like, well, we shouldn't pay them more. They're doing that with childcare. They're doing that with teachers. Our teachers and our childcare workers deserve the world.
Definitely.
And especially, like, children under 12 can't get vaccinated. Oftentimes kids have a hard time keeping their masks on in indoor spaces. These are dangerous work environments. And this should be factored in when we're deciding whether teachers should be on site or not. We're sitting under this, like, little structure outside of one of our favorite cafes. And it's in a public parking spot, right? Like, we've built infrastructure for businesses to make it safer for us to be outdoors together, and yet, like, we haven't seen the same thing happen with schools. Like, we need to reevaluate who we're putting at risk, and we need to make changes, and we need to put people first. We need to put workers first. So we know that this initiative does this. We understand that it is going to cut into the profits of small businesses, right? Like, that's a fact. But at the same time, like, poor people, when they make more money, they spend more money. So people will be going out to eat more. People will be buying more goods from the restaurants and small businesses that will be most affected by this initiative. So it'll balance out. And if these small businesses are so concerned, they need to go to their state legislators, because the thing is, the interests of businesses are rarely ignored by our government, but the interests of workers are often ignored. And we're here to fight for workers, and we encourage businesses to go to the state legislators and kind of just fill in the gaps for themselves.
Right. And I feel like there's been a lot of, like, public opposition from some employers, but can you speak to maybe, like, who's been reaching out to the campaign privately?
Yeah, I would love to speak to that. We've had so many messages from workers, and many of them are reaching out to us, and saying, I can't say this to my employer, but for fear of retaliation, but I support you. I'm so grateful for the work you're doing. I want to back 1 through 4. I absolutely support it. And we've even most recently had some city workers reach out, which is really interesting to us, because the city has taken a very, very public stance against these measures, and yet city workers are really on board for them. And so we find that to be really significant. And we think that that is so important for voters to know.
Definitely.
And a great reason to vote yes on all 4 of these initiatives.
Thanks, Maya.
Yeah.
Go.
I see this question.
Yeah.
I don't want to ignore it.
Sure.
It says, can you explain more about initiative? And sorry if we miss any questions from the chat. It's just not
I'll try to keep track.
Trying to ignore you, but we're all new to this. Can you explain more about Initiative 4's flexible hours debate? Right. So the opposition, which is funded by $180,000 of corporate money, by the way, is trying to reframe secure scheduling as restrictive scheduling, which of course they are, because they're corporate
so frustrating.
telling them to do so. But we had our legal guy take a look at the language, and do you have the facts pulled up?
No, these are for the
Okay, let me just pull up the facts really quick.
What are you looking for here?
The
predictable.
The flexible scheduling language?
I mean, to put it simply, it gives workers more control over their scheduling.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't force employers to have anything other than a good faith interactive process with every employee on an at least yearly basis.
And at Section 211, right, speaks to that the employee and employer can come to an alternative solution. So really, I think there's a freedom there for employees who might not want to stick with a set schedule to be able to work with their employer to get what they need. I'm going to pass it off to Maya.
I just want to add something on this one. When I signed these petitions in, I think it was early June, might have been late May, that was the one. I signed it and I thought, this is fascinating. And I went back and read all of the initiatives word for word. And that one blew me away. Fair scheduling is incredible. And it is not restrictive at all. If anything, it creates this amazing expectation and framework for employers to know how to approach their employees with scheduling. It's honestly more of a guide. It's like how to be an amazing employer and accommodate your employees. And here's how to do it well. And it really outlines this beautiful framework for how to communicate with folks, how to have transparency and fairness in your scheduling. It's an incredible piece of this initiative. And it's honestly part of what really pulled me on board as a volunteer for People First Bellingham.
I love that.
And now Maya has been like such an incredible like part of this campaign. I just want to like really highlight the fact that like this campaign is really a marathon that we've been working on since January of last year. December even when we were like trying to figure out which initiatives to push. And it's taken a lot of volunteer work, and it's taken a lot of passing the baton to other volunteers. So if you want to get involved in the final stretch, I don't know if you can see the bags under my eyes, but we're all fucking tired. Like, please. And I want to read the legal language of Section 2.11. It states that discussions between the employer and the employee around scheduling may include the proposal of alternatives by the employee and the employer. All workers deserve predictability in their scheduling, but if an employee would prefer to work a changing schedule, they can.
Yeah. And I just also want to speak real quick to like our volunteer base. It's a bunch of working class renters, and like we're volunteering in between work and school. Stage is studying to be a nurse and like trying to get that underway. Like we are all giving so much of ourselves to this campaign, and like that's why it's so powerful, because we are the ones that are on the front line of these issues, and we're advocating for ourselves, and we're standing up and saying we need this. And it's just been amazing to watch our community come together and really put these initiatives forward, you know, gathering 9,000 signatures, over 9,000 signatures for each one when we only needed 6,000. And there are loud voices saying that this is not what we need, and I just want to say, like, there are as many loud voices, if not more, saying this is what we need. So I'm gonna pass it around one more time to Maya. Just for something you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, are there any other questions that we have here? Let's see. Keep questions coming. I don't know that there's hi neighbor Sally. I'm not sure if there's been any other questions. Can you all think of other?
I think I just want to address, and we're going on C2C's radio show, which should air on Wednesday. So we'll address this a little bit more then. Please tune in for that as well. Community Boss. And I want to address City Council really trying to lump all of these initiatives together as like one piece of legislation. These are 4 separate initiatives, and you know, they're pointing to these like you know, abstract issues that they foresee like coming up. And I'm for instance with Initiative 1, which is the one I'm most familiar with because I personally helped craft it. I think that they're just pointing out to the fact that they're going to have to legally defend it like they did in Oregon, because landlords are going to claim it's rent control, and that's failed in Oregon courts multiple times. So yeah, maybe they'll have to spend some city funds defending these initiatives, but that's to make more rights for workers. To say that that's a fatal flaw and not just part of doing politics is incredibly disingenuous and harmful, and I'm so mad that they passed a resolution where they clumped everything together, didn't look at everything as a separate initiative. So regardless of how you feel about any of the initiatives, I just encourage you to vote for them as separate initiatives, because they were drafted from legislation from different parts of the country. Different people worked to draft all of them. We stand by all of them, but vote how you want, and don't let your feelings on one of these initiatives, stop you from voting on the other ones.
Yes, thank you, Sage. All right, we've got a question from Tyler. Where's the funding for FOR's opposition coming from? Who is funding the anti-worker narrative?
It's
a great
the usual
question.
suspects.
Let me pull up those PDC
Yes,
files.
let's name some names.
Let's name some names.
Yeah, maybe
And
with dollar
in the meantime,
amounts.
while we're pulling up that file, let's mention that it's about 3% of the 180 grand.
One donation.
One donation.
One donation that is local, and
Yeah.
the rest not. And let's name some names here. Let's talk about where that money is coming from that is setting up opposition against this campaign and against workers.
The top,
It's mostly PACs. Let's be clear about that. So it's mostly PACs. We're
And
having
what is a PAC?
It's
Political Action Committee.
yes, it's how corporations get away with funneling
Hiding their money.
into campaigns. So we're having a hard time figuring out who is actually funding these PACs. So we just have these lovely fluffy names to give you, but there's real corporations behind these fluffy names. So the first one is Washington Hospitality Association PAC, based out of Olympia, Washington, and they cut $50,000 against Initiative 4.
Damn.
The next one is the Washington Retail Association Retail Action Council, also out of Olympia, $30,000.
Northwest Grocery Association.
$25,000.
Which is most likely Kroger
The big chains.
and Albertsons, Safeway. They're the same ones that oppose the hazard pay that we fought for. Many of us testified in front of City Council earlier this year to get that city ordinance passed. That was way too late. That should have happened last year.
And then, go on the PDC website, Google no on for Bellingham PDC. Watch the numbers go up, because we don't know how much they're going to spend against us, but you're going to get lots of nasty mailers. You're probably going to get Facebook ads, which we haven't been approved for. And yeah, it's going to be a messy couple of weeks coming up. The one that I do want to highlight before we move on is DoorDash. DoorDash is based out of San Francisco. They don't want to pay. They fought so hard not to pay their workers fairly in California. Now they're doing the same thing here. So that's they're not even hiding behind a PAC. They're coming out and saying, hey, we don't want to pay workers $4 during hazards. Which I don't know about you, but I got some DoorDash during the pandemic when I was afraid to go to restaurants. Those are the workers that were on the front lines the entire time during this pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. Maya?
So to piggyback on that a little bit, isn't that so significant that all of this money lines up against workers making a little bit more money, and that it is not our local businesses. So even though what we're seeing kind of in the swirl of all of this talk about how much this will threaten local business and small businesses, what is actually happening here, and I think this is an important kind of framing of all of this money against this initiative, is that big PACs, corporate PACs, can prop up small businesses as a proxy for their argument. It makes it look so much more compelling. And this happens with many things, minimum wage. But what we know, what research shows, is that increasing the wage only benefits the entire community. It does not kill small businesses. In the end, people have more money in their pockets to spend, as these folks have pointed out. It is not a killer of small businesses. But what it is a big cut into the profits of big corporations. And so it is just so ultra convenient for them to have smaller businesses in Bellingham to be able to hold up and say, oh, you know, look at all these like local folks complaining about this. And so we want to be really clear what that is about, and how much money is behind this that is not from Bellingham businesses. So just to add that in there. The other piece that I want to kind of add to that is the city of Bellingham, in coming out against, I don't want to say the city as a whole, monolith, but the city council, in deciding that they are going to take this position against workers, is really, I tried to point this out yesterday in the argument around the policing bit, but I think it applies here too. It really is so much about access. Workers don't have access to the ear of city council in a way that businesses do. And so for the city to come out against this is really kind of a clear positioning. We elect our city council members. They are supposed to represent people, not business. So if all of this external money and big PAC money is what they're choosing to align themselves with instead of the workers and the renters of this city, that is so significant. And voters really need to think about that. Is that where you want your politicians to align? So not only is this about our platform, but it's also about, as you look at your ballot, look around at the candidates. Look who are the folks who are supporting these initiatives. Take note of that and vote accordingly. I'm going to pass it off to Seth. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think you were right on about who City Council seems to serve at the moment.
We did have a question from Chuck.
I'll take that one.
Sure. Without with keeping anonymity.
Yeah. We don't want to put workers at risk, right? So what we will say is that we're hearing from grocery store workers, we're hearing from city workers, we're hearing from farmers, and we're hearing from people in the service industry. And when we were gathering signatures for this campaign, those service industry workers were the ones with the stories that really resonated with me the most, especially with I've worked in the service industry on and off since I was 16, so I know how it can be, and just because you work at a small business doesn't mean that you don't deal with unfair scheduling and the we're a family here framing. So
yeah, I would actually like to. Can I quote?
Oh yeah, please do.
Yeah, I really want to quote Eleni Prada from Walking Peace and Justice Center. Put out a really
Their
good,
fearless executive director.
Fearless executive director.
We love you, Eleni.
We're so lucky to have
I really wanted to work this in yesterday. Nonprofits were brought up a lot by the opposition yesterday, as Initiative 4 would hurt them. But here's what Eleni has to say. Here's what I think when I see all of these we are family type businesses and white-led nonprofits boycotting Initiative 4. They're scared of precarity, but profit from it every single day. If you can't offer stability and dignified working conditions for your staff, then you're not equipped to talk about social justice or sustainability, no matter how many beautiful DEI statements, certificates, or trainings you have. So weird how in the US we're so used to an absent/violent/neoliberal state that instead of supporting democratic, worker-led policies defining what needs to be fair working conditions, we treat corporations as victims and organize BIPOC working class people as ignorants rather than experts.
Powerful.
You see this often in the non-profit industrial complex that whenever their workers are trying to organize for better wages and working conditions, they're often gaslit, with that organization supposedly being very, mission and values driven, and that's kind of lauded over the employees there. It's like, why are you trying to hurt the mission? Don't you care about the mission? Why are you wanting more pay? When we believe every worker deserves, what they produce.
And that kind of also points to putting the responsibility on the worker to maintain infrastructure of childcare and social services, when it should be our government supporting those services and, making sure that they have what they need and looking to state and federal funding. It can't be on the frontline workers to ensure that we have affordable childcare.
Let's remember that the only reason we have nonprofits providing these crucial social services is because Reagan defunded social services on, a federal level in the 1980s. We're still suffering from that.
Definitely.
So, these are bigger systemic issues that we're dealing with, and we're doing our best to address them at a local level, but we know that they're Band-Aids.
But they're also important Band-Aids.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so significant. I mean, this is a really historic campaign, both in Bellingham, in the state, and in the country, quite frankly. It is incredible, and it is a way that we can bring those services back. And if our legislators, if our federal government is not going to do that job, then local folks can take it into their own hands, and we're doing it. So be proud of being able to vote yes on all of these.
And I just want to take this time while we have a few people watching. Thank you for tuning in, by the way. To address something that I think I highlight a lot when we do interviews about this campaign, but it rarely makes it into the print editions. Which is why we're doing this campaign. We're doing this campaign to build power. This is not the end. We're not going home on November 3rd and going to sleep.
Maybe a little bit.
Well, maybe literally, but not
just a couple
metaphorically.
days.
Okay, fine. We can have a couple days off. But, this was an opportunity for a bunch of progressive organizations in town to get together, practice working together on something big and challenging that challenges power structures so that we can do it better next time.
Yeah.
And, we don't stop here. We're seeing from the unanimous vote from City Council, with one absence, that our city government is not representative of what, tens of thousands of people signed for to get these initiatives on the ballot. It's easy for our city government to look progressive when they exist in a vacuum of other people who have the same centrist politics as them. So this is an opportunity to frame where our city council stands. Another thing that framed where our city council stood, they came out in favor of the new jail 4 years ago. And then the voters, overwhelmingly decided not to build a new jail. So this is just another example of when you actually make them take a position on progressive issues that put workers and renters and vulnerable communities first, they're not going to do it. So, join the movement, get involved, recognize that electoralism doesn't solve everything, but it's a place where we have significant power as workers when given the opportunity. And don't stop after election day. We are all building relationships here, and we invite you to build relationships with us. We want you to be involved. We want to go get coffee or beers with you, so that we can work together better next time. So really understand that grassroots doesn't mean that we go out door knocking and then don't talk to each other. This is a community. Where we want you to be a part of it. So check out our website. Sign the interest form. Like,
call you.
look out for events that we're we're putting together. We want to see you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sage.
Yeah, no-
Any final words?
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off of what you're saying there, Sage. No matter how you feel about any of these initiatives right now, no matter what happens on election day, we're so proud of the conversations that we've gotten rolling with these, because for so long these issues haven't been brought up at this heightened of a level, and so we're really proud to get that ball rolling no matter what happens.
Chuck, we have masks at the farmers market every Saturday. And at this point in the campaign, we're doing pretty well on funds. We're giving out masks and yard signs. We appreciate the donations.
Yes, get those yard signs.
But we need these things out in the community. So, like, really come pick up stuff. The t-shirts are sold below cost. We just want you guys out repping this stuff, because people need to know that, like, the city's narrative and the small business narrative is not the only narrative here. There's people that support this campaign, and I'm so happy every time I see a yard sign or a mask out in the
And
community.
to that, not everybody can get involved in the same ways, and we totally recognize that. I don't know why, but like, we've had everyone in the community seems to have had the craziest, busiest week ever last week for some reason. So we understand everybody's busy. There's a lot of little things you can do. So even like, grab yourself a t-shirt or a mask, make like a social media video, right?
Yes.
And talk about, hey, this is why I support these initiatives, or choose one of the initiatives. Whatever you can do to explain why you support what you support in this campaign would be amazing. Tag us in that.
Yes.
We'll share it. There's a lot of ways. So feel free to email us, approach us, message us, and we'll figure out a way to get you involved.
Yeah.
That being said, talking to people who don't even know about these initiatives is the most important and impactful thing that we can do to actually win on November 2nd. So sign up, talk to your friends, sign up,
Talk to your coworkers.
talk to your coworkers.
Talk to your student friends
to your
and get them
neighbors.
to register to vote locally. We understand that elections in your hometown are really important, but like, just look at the local elections in your hometown and look at this local election and say, what am I going to be more sad about if it loses by 1, 2, 3 votes?
Because we've had votes in Whatcom County that with a difference of 1 to 2 votes.
Let's win.
One was a coin flip. I
It was
think
a coin flip.
Yeah.
last year, or
Yeah.
the year before,
2 years ago.
We don't want to be a coin flip. We
No.
want to be at least 75 cents over.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're in
Awesome.
this community.
Deadline to register in
Online.
person online is October 25th. You can register in person up until Election Day, up until 8 p.m. on November 2nd. And with that, just want to make sure you have a plan to vote. If you haven't gotten your ballot and you don't have it by tomorrow, check your status. Vote.wa.gov, G-O-V. You can check where your ballot's at. You can make sure it's coming to you. You can check which address you're registered at. Make a plan to vote. Vote early. We need those ballots in. If you have questions about how to vote or how to make a plan, reach out to us. We are here to answer questions and make sure that your voice is heard. There are ballot boxes throughout town, and you can also vote by mail. And there was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, and we've been putting together frequently asked questions. We will be posting that later today. I know that there's been a lot of questions out there, lots of concerns, and just needing to clear up some information. So keep an eye out for our FAQ. We'll be putting that on our website. And just thank you for joining us today on this rainy Sunday. I'm just going to pass it around one more time for farewells, and hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks for being here. Whoop.
Thanks,
Solidarity
everybody.
forever.
Solidarity. Thank you so much, Eve, as well, for hosting this with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Remember that when you're filling out your ballot.
Yes. Did you want to show off a button there, Seth?
Oh
Those
yeah.
are for the workers inside
Yeah,
that
yeah.
asked for them.
Yeah, we're outside Cafe Blue right now, so
Yeah, thank you,
yeah.
Cafe Blue, for your support.
Show us that
It's
button.
wonderful.
We're gonna hook
We
them
got
up with
cute
some
little
buttons.
buttons,
We've
yeah.
already got masks.
And shirts. We'll see you out there on the streets.
It's all.
Bye.